Hello and welcome back to another week of What's for Dinner. I'm Rachel and this is what I put on my family's table. There's nothing more comforting when you have the sniffles or fall allergies or you just want some comfort food than homemade chicken noodle soup. And to get started, I just added some chicken broth to my pot. I have a few frozen chicken breasts and I'm also throwing in a couple of globs of frozen celery that I had in my freezer. Next, I got started chopping up an onion and a carrot. When I went grocery shopping, I actually bought this one carrot. It felt strange, but it was all that I needed. And carrots are not my favorite vegetable, but you have to have them in soup, in my opinion. I just chopped these up into the smallest pieces that I could do so that they would cook up nice and quick. One lovely thing about making your own soup is that you can add whatever seasonings and spices and herbs that you like. So I am adding a little bit of marjoram and of course some black pepper and some salt. I wasn't sure what spices I wanted to use, so I just sniffed everything, and if it smelled like it would taste good in my soup, then it was going in. I had some rosemary that I dried, so I'm just crumbling that up into my soup as well. My whole house was beginning to smell delicious. And so next I added some garlic powder, and we just used enough to keep the vampires away. I had to use the powder because I did not have any fresh. And because I was making charcuterie boards or plates or whatever for us, I had some of the smoked sausage left over, and I just decided why not just throw that in there as well. I've never added smoked sausage to my chicken noodle soup, but it worked out just fine and gave it another element of flavor. Once that chicken had enough time to get tender, I just came back with my meat masher and shredded it up. Then I got busy boiling up our noodles, and my husband requested egg noodles, so that is what I'm making. I had those in my pantry anyway, so it worked out just great. Next, I got busy cutting up some cheese into cubes. I made some individual snack plates to go along with our soup. And these snack plates or charcuteries are just going to have some cheese and some fruit and some fruit dip and some smoked sausage on them. My Meijer grocery store had their cheeses on sale in their 5 for whatever deal, and I was there for cheese anyway, so I bought 5 different types. And then I just put my block of cream cheese into the microwave for about a minute to get it softened up. And I mean, you don't want it to be smoking hot or anything, but I find it's a lot easier to stir if I warm it up a little bit. And once my cream cheese was on the melty side, all I did was add some caramel sauce. So like the kind that you would put on ice cream or use in a recipe or a drink. I don't know. You could use it for so many things. But to me, I just thought this would be a really easy caramel cream cheese dip to dip our apples and our grapes in. I did end up dipping some graham crackers in them as well. And so I'm just putting a little bit of that dip in the center in these clear cups. We had the remainder of this package of clear cups left over from when I did the orange floats, and I'm just going to start adding things that I know that each person in the family likes. So, you know, the different kinds of cheeses based on who likes what. My husband loves the extra sharp cheese. He and Cameron like the chicken biscuit crackers, but I don't care for them, so I'm just putting some on their plates. They're having grapes, and I can't eat grapes, so none for me. And then Cameron doesn't like blueberries, so none for him, and you know, just that kind of thing. And this is how those snack plates turned out. And I just ended up snacking on mine before and after my bowl of soup while we were watching a movie. And I know I'm jumping around a little here, but that's real life. And I just drained off those egg noodles and got those tossed into my chicken soup. Gave them a good stir, and that was it for this delicious homemade chicken noodle soup. Or I guess I should say chicken and sausage noodle soup. It really was so comforting and so delicious, and just really helped with my allergy symptoms that I've been experiencing. Maybe it's all the black pepper that I add to mine. I don't know, but it works for me. And of course, I made enough to have leftovers in my freezer. Of course, I had to add more black pepper into my own bowl, and I just served mine up with some Italian bread and butter. And did I already mention cups for orange floats? Well, here we go. So my skills are not very advanced, but I was able to put some spooky faces on some clear cups with a permanent marker, and then I'm just filling the cups with some orange Fanta. Now, maybe normal people would have put their ice cream in first and then poured the soda in, but I do things kind of backwards. And I wasn't able to find just plain vanilla ice cream at our store, so I had to get the Neapolitan. So you will see a little speck of chocolate on there. And I had so many troubles. I'm telling you, I always struggle with everything I do. So I did have to take the scoop with my finger and put it in there. But that's okay, because that was my pumpkin face. And the one without ice cream was Cameron's, because he was outside playing at the time. I always find that I do more on Sundays for dinners, and then come Monday when I have to work, and then come up with a dinner on the fly or whatever. I just don't feel like cooking, but I do feel like eating. So this week I was just determined to have something easy in mind for dinner. So I am just making a sheet pan meal of hamburger steaks and then these little potatoes. And to start, I just sprayed my pan and I'm laying out my onion slices on the bottom. I have some hamburger patties all pattied up, and I'm just going to put them right on top of those onions and give them a little bit of a smash down so that they can kind of stick to those onions and get that oniony flavor right into the meat. And this is super easy because you're making everything in one pan. And I really like that I didn't have to peel any potatoes. I just plopped all the little potatoes right in the pan. Once everything is in place, I just came back with my salt grinder and then just made sure that all the potatoes and all of the hamburger patties were salted up. Next, I'm sprinkling on the garlic powder. And I'm going to keep those seasonings really basic and just add some pepper. So salt, pepper, and garlic powder. About 20 to 25 minutes later, I checked the hamburger patties and they were looking mostly done, and I decided that I was going to give them a flip and put them back in. I then added some Heinz 57 sauce to some of the burgers. I left a couple plain for those who do not care for that sauce. And I just spread my sauce around with my same spatula that I was using because I just didn't want to dirty up my brush, but you could always just brush it on with a silicone brush or a barbecue mop or whatever you like. I just popped these back in the oven, which was on 375 degrees for a few more minutes. And then while those were finishing off in the oven, I just made up a couple of salads. I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but I cannot eat just regular lettuce with my stomach issues. So I just made this kind of regular salad for the guys, and then I made another bowl of salad for myself. And I'm just using a salad bag kit that has mostly cabbage and kale in it, and that is easier for my stomach to digest for some reason. And so that's why we have the two different salads. I did add some tomatoes and some mozzarella cheese to my salad. This is the very last tomato from my garden, and I'm kind of sad to see it go, but I still have some tomatoes in my freezer. And then here is my sheet pan after it was removed from the oven. Those potatoes and those burgers were so good. I'm just plopping some of those potatoes on my plate, and then I'm having my hamburger steak and some of those onions just like this. Now, some of the boys did put theirs on buns, but that's not what I planned on doing on this day, and so this is how I had my plate fixed up. And I just took my fork and smashed some of those potatoes down. I didn't add any butter or anything because they did have the drippings from the hamburger steaks kind of mixed in with everything, so they had a delicious flavor already. Tuesdays are my late night at work, so I like to get something ready in the crock pot so that my guys have dinner ready when they come home. Even though I'm not home on this day, it's kind of like I am. So I am just putting some country ribs into my crock pot, and I'm going to let them cook all day on warm because my crock pot is just something else. And warm is low, low is high, and high is... I don't know what it is, but we don't use that setting very often. And so I'm just going to put these on warm, and I'm just going to add some chopped onion, some chopped bell pepper, and then I'm going to make up a sauce to spread on top. It just makes me feel so good to be able to provide a meal for my guys when I'm not even at home. That's why I love my crock pot, and I try to drag it out on Tuesdays as much as I can. For my sauce, I'm just adding a couple tablespoons of stone ground mustard and a couple tablespoons of red wine vinegar. And then I'm going to come in with some soy sauce. And I'm going to say that this is probably more like a quarter of a cup. Next, I'm adding about 3 tablespoons of brown sugar, and these are heaping tablespoons. These are not the actual measuring type of tablespoons, but anyway, it really doesn't matter when it comes to the brown sugar. You add as much or as little as you like. The same with the crushed red pepper. If you don't like spicy, I would not use as much as you saw me use, but we do like the spice, so there it is. And I'm adding a couple tablespoons of cornstarch just to thicken it up and then give us a nice thick sauce. Meanwhile, I want to make sure that that meat is getting some seasoning, so I'm using my own blend of garlic, pepper, salt, and onion powder. And I just sprinkled that right on top and then poured my sauce in as well. I'm going to put the lid on and I'm going to let it go. And my crock pot is going to help me perform a little bit of kitchen magic. I sat out some green beans and some mashed potatoes next to the crock pot, but how did I know the green beans were not going to make it to the plate? This is a picture of Bill's plate that he sent me. Okay, this next one is a no-brainer. It's so easy. I'm just going to make some tuna helper. We don't make boxed meals very often, but over the summer I picked up these on a couple of different shopping trips just so that Cameron would have something quick and easy to have for lunches, and they didn't get used. So I noticed that I had these 2 boxes in my pantry and decided to use them up. Bill hates tuna and always makes such a big deal about the smell of it that we rarely ever make anything with tuna in it. But on this night, he wasn't going to be home, so that is what we decided to do. And I could have added a vegetable like some broccoli or something to this pan, but I just decided to make it just as it called for on the box directions. I used 3 cans of tuna in this recipe because I had 2 boxes of tuna helper, and I just figured that 1 extra can of tuna wouldn't harm anything. On the back burner, you see that I am heating up a can of green beans that Bill did not make the night before. And I'm just adding butter to everything and seasoning well with some salt and pepper. I remember when I was a younger mom and I had more little kids at home, we used to make hamburger helper and tuna helper a couple of times a month, and my kids always loved it, and I always thought it was super easy to make because everything was just portioned out for me, and all I had to do was add some milk and some water and some butter. And my kids were always happy whenever I was making some kind of a helper meal. The 2 kids that are still at home did seem to enjoy this meal. We just don't seem to make it very often unless I happen to find a couple of boxes sitting around in my pantry like I did on this night. If the kids enjoy it and I can get dinner on the table quick and easy in the middle of a work week, then I call that a win-win situation. On Thursday, I ended up having to work over until 6 o'clock, and Bill worked late, and so I just grabbed some pizza from Little Caesars on my way home. I also got some Italian cheesy bread, and the boys were just happy as can be, and actually I was too, because I have been wanting pizza. And Little Caesars is just conveniently close to home, and they have a drive-thru, which made it even faster. It's Saturday and I'm throwing together this really quick and simple apple dessert using just a can of cinnamon rolls, some apples, and a few pantry staples like brown sugar and cinnamon. I'm just getting my apples sliced up and removing some of the bruises. These apples have been sitting around. They were already washed up and ready for people to grab and go snacking, whatever, and they just didn't get grabbed. So now they're going into my cast iron skillet so that they can get used. We don't want to waste these really yummy, delicious Honeycrisp apples. Now you can use any apple you want, but this is just what we had sitting in our fruit bowl. So I have some butter that I melted in my cast iron skillet, and I'm just adding a tablespoon or 2 or 3 of brown sugar. And then I'm going to add some cinnamon, some salt, and then that's about it. I mean, you can do whatever you want. You can add nutmeg if you like it, which I don't. So I don't use nutmeg in anything, basically. But all I'm doing is getting my apples kind of fried up in my cast iron skillet. And I do use a little bit of salt just to enhance that flavor of those apples and that sugar. Give everything a good stir just to get it all coated with that good cinnamony melted butter. Next, I opened my package of cinnamon rolls. Mine always come out like this, like they unravel and then I have to put them back together. I usually take my little frosting packet and put it on the stove somewhere so it can get warm and melty. After I got all of my cinnamon rolls rolled back up, I then started cutting them into smaller pieces, and I started just cutting with like no plan, but then I remembered that I just needed to do fourths. These apples are looking nice and soft, but they're going to finish cooking in the oven. which I have heating up to 350 degrees. I just placed all of those cinnamon roll pieces right on top of those apples and then just spread them around. And I had some pecans in my pantry in a little jar, so I'm just going to use those as well. I could have chopped them up into smaller pieces, but I just sprinkled them on whole, just like they were. You could always mix these in with the apples and get them coated with that cinnamon, and that would have been really good too. And then here is what it looked like when it came out of the oven. I just cooked them until those cinnamon rolls were nice and fluffy and not gooey and undercooked. And then I just squeezed the frosting right on top. And now is one of those scoopable moments, and here is how it turned out. It was just really delicious and hit the spot on a fall day. For our actual dinner on this day, I just made burgers. I know that we just had hamburger steaks earlier in the week, but I just was in the mood for a nice big fat burger. And so while I was out shopping, I just picked up some ground beef and decided this would be a really quick and easy dinner since we were having grandkids over for the night. I wanted to make sure that I got dinner done and out of the way before they all started showing up. All of our kids were going to a Halloween party, so Grandma and Grandpa got called for babysitting duty, and we're just going to have some of this great value mac and cheese. This is the white cheddar and pepper. Once my pasta was done cooking and drained, I just added the 2 cheese sauce pouches. I did 2 boxes of the macaroni and cheese. And I do add a little bit more black pepper because you know how much I love it. The burgers are ready to be topped with a slice of American cheese. And we're keeping it really simple, just cheese. I love the versatility of burgers. You can pretty much do anything you want with them. And I'm having mine with some mayo and some A1 steak sauce. We were out of ketchup, otherwise I probably would have just stuck with the usual mustard and ketchup, but we didn't have any ketchup, so it was mayo and steak sauce for me. Here are some of the goodies that I sat out for the grandkids that were coming over to spend the night. Since there were so many of them, I wanted to make sure that I had some things that they could just grab and go. I kept it easy and simple, and they just loved it. And that is all that I have for this week's What's for Dinner. Thank you for coming by, and if you had fun here today, be sure to hit the subscribe button so you can see more of my videos in the future. Bye for now.